Welcome to the Unitarian Church of Lincoln on this Sunday morning. My name is Charlie Ahern. I am not the minister. I am a worship associate. Our minister, the Reverend Dr. Oscar Sinclair, is not with us today. Hopefully he'll be back next week. And I'm joined by Amy Miller, who will be our worship associate today. Over the last several years, the way we have met has often changed, but whether in person, on Zoom, on a YouTube live stream, or some other way of being that we cannot yet imagine, worship together is a chance to deepen our connection with the source of meaning in our lives, and to proclaim who we are and what we are about, throwing open the doors of the congregation and proclaiming the radical love and welcome that is at the heart of our faith. The Unitarian Church of Lincoln aspires to be a loving community, uniting reason with spiritual exploration to transform ourselves and the world. Welcome to this loving community. May we, in our gathering here, be about the work of transforming ourselves and the world.
We begin each service lighting the chalice, the symbol of our faith. And our chalice lighting reading this morning is from a Unitarian Universalist of our time, Mark Caussy. We light this chalice, spark of the original fire of creation, to remind us that all of us on this planet, the furred, the feathered, the finned, along with all of us featherless bipeds, we are all made of the same star stuff, and we all share a common destiny. We all share the same hopes of a life free from harm and suffering. We all have the same aspirations of happiness, love, flourishing, being able to express our own unique natures and capacities as best as we may. We have many diverse perspectives from which the whole of existence is seen and experienced. We are inexplicably intertwined, interconnected, and interdependent. Let this chalice's light be a ray of hope for all of us gathered here today to worship. For our first hymn, we invite you to stand as you are able and willing. It is the hymn, Enter, Rejoice, and Come In. You'll find it on the screen, Enter, Rejoice, and Come In.
Okay. Well, we love to have the children come down for our story today. It's going to be a group effort today from me, Judy Hart, and Amy Miller today.
Our time for all ages today is Hey Little Ant by Philip and Hannah Hoos.
Hey, little ant down in the crack, can you hear me? Can you talk? See my shoe? I'm gonna squish you flat.
Please, oh please, do not squish me. I'm just minding my own business. I don't want to die.
Anyone knows that ants are too small to actually feel anything. I'm so big and you're so small. Don't worry, I don't think it'll hurt.
You couldn't possibly know what it's like to be so small because you're just such a huge giant. Come down close. I think you'll see that we're very much alike.
Are you crazy? Me like you? You're just a speck that runs around. No one would care if I squished you.
Oh, big friend, you are so wrong. My nestmates need me. I dig our nest and feed baby ants too. Please, I'm begging you, don't squish me.
But my mom says that ants are rude. They carry off our picnic food. They steal our chips and breadcrumbs too. It's good if I squish a crook like you.
Hey, I'm not a crook, kid. Read my lips. Sometimes ants need crumbs and chips. One little chip can feed my town. So please, don't make your shoe come down.
But all my friends squish ants each day. Squishing ants is a game we play. They're looking at me. They're listening too. They all said, I should squish you.
I can see you're big and strong. Decide yourself what's right and wrong. If you were me and I were you, what would you want me to do?
But everyone is doing it. Oh, don't you see? Everyone has done it except for me. I have heard your objections and I have heard your plea. Now, I must decide. Should I let you be?
What does your conscience say? How do you feel? Does squishing an ant even seem real? Does it matter? What does your heart say? You get to make choices every single day. Should the ant get squished or should the ant go free? It's up to the kid, not up to me. What do you think the ant should do? Would you do it if it were up to you? What did yours answer? You said leave him alone. How many people agree? Should we leave the ant alone? Let's leave the ant alone. Good choices. We are so welcoming and happy to have our guest music be from our own beloved Bill Carpenter today. And as folks return to their seats or to their classrooms as they see fit, it is beautiful music time.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome. I'm Meg Maring, a member of the Board of Trustees. I want to offer a special welcome to those of you who are visiting for the first time. Find me in the gallery following the service for coffee and conversation, or connect with another board members with their new blue board ribbons on their name tags. I see Elle and I see Peg with theirs. And on to the announcements. There's two. Join us this week for the third Thursday service on October 19th. Oscar and Bob will explore what it means to be kind and generous in community. And the A Street Band will be jamming to some new tunes. You don't want to miss this one. Second announcement, the next night, Friday, October 20th, come on down to the talent show and night market at 6:30 p.m. Share your talents or just experience all the talented people in our community. The suggested donation at the door is $10 per person, maximum of $20 per family. Now we'll switch over to Joys and Sorrows. Amy?
Each week during our service, we share joys and sorrows in order to recognize the community that ties us all together. This morning, before we share our own joys and sorrows, it felt appropriate to all of us on your worship team this morning to lift up the message of our UUA president, the Reverend Sophia Betancourt, PhD, before we share our own sorrows and our own joys. Dr. Betancourt writes, "Beloveds, I invite you to stop what you're doing if you can and sit with me in the depth of this tragedy of continued violence between Israel and Hamas. How to reconcile the cost of occupation and of war. How to nuance two very real histories of oppression and violence. I'm holding close the words of UN Middle East Peace Envoy Tor Wennesland, who said, quote, 'This is a dangerous precipice. I appeal to all to pull back from the brink,' end quote. We as a people of faith can condemn violence against civilians while at the same time engaging the full legacies and histories of oppression that shaped such devastating conflict. As a faith tradition, Unitarian Universalists have long worked for peace, and our principles include goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. At the same time, UUA has not engaged the tangled issues surrounding the Israel-Palestine issue in community since 2018. And the UUA's last engagement resulted in severed relationships and deep pain. She writes, "I pray for the people of Israel and Palestine. I pray for leaders around the globe who must respond to this latest flare of violence and the untenable ethical considerations that abound. I pray for Muslim and Jewish UUs who experience the impact of this long strife acutely. I pray that those of us less likely to know the trauma of unending brutality and harm will not turn away from generational loss, from the devastating realities and their root causes, or from the relentless tragedy of war and occupation. Be gentle with yourselves when you need to be, but do not turn away until you must. We are one global family living tenuously on this same human-impacted earth. Let us center ourselves in justice as we continue to call for peace." Sorrows can be global, and sorrows can be individual. When we have sorrow, they're entwined in the fabric of our life. If we share those sorrows, it can lessen the burden briefly. For those of you that are online, we invite you to share any sorrows with your own name or that of another by typing it into the chat. There's a slight delay, so I will attempt to speak in a temperate fashion to allow those words to be typed so that I can share them here in the sanctuary. For those of you who are present in the room, I invite you to say out loud your name or the name of another that you are thinking of in sorrow today? The Maltus family. Larry. Lorraine. David. The family of Lynn Hillhouse. Glenn Hillhouse. Sharon. W. Raquel. In the chat, we have the sorrow for Jenny. If sorrow was the only human experience, life would be grim indeed. But life is tempered as well with joys. Small joys, like spotting extra bright colored fall leaves in an otherwise gray day. And life sometimes have joys that are huge and loud and need celebrating with clapping. For those of you who are online, I invite you to type your own name or the name of someone you would like to lift up in joy. And for those of you here in the room, we would love to share your joy with you today. Susie. Jessica and Rachel. Our presence this morning of our past member, Ed Long, who's traveling through and came to visit us this morning. Hi, Ed. In the chat, we have a joy, Angie. We also have a joy, Evelyn Weymouth is turning 73 on Wednesday.
My wife and I were successful making our
48th trip around the sun as a couple. Very nice. Gavin shares a joy, and this would be another one of those examples of it's small, but it's huge. We're making breakfast burritos. We know that not every joy or sorrow is ready to be shared aloud. For whatever joys or sorrows that you are carrying with you that you have not spoken into this space, let us hold a moment for everything that was unspoken and spoken here today. Thank you all for your presence. Please feel free to remain seated as we sing our next hymn, Come Sing a Song with Me.
Good morning. My name's Jason Slaughter. I'm the treasurer for the church here at the Unitarian Church of Lincoln. Today, I'd like to give you an update on the annual giving campaign and where we are in the budget process. This year, you might have noticed, we're trying some different ways to engage the community here at our church in time, treasure, and talents. We hope that you are taking a serious look at what we are asking this community to do. So if you do, please take some time to engage in our new annual giving campaign pledge form here in the near future. If you have questions, please seek me out or any board member with a blue ribbon, and so we can hear your thoughts. Now, I do want to briefly tell you where we are. The budget truly is a living document here at our church. It sets our priorities throughout the year. It says a lot of who we are as a community. Our committees and staff have already put in the request of what they'd like to see accomplished for next year, 2024. Now, that number right now is a little over $560,000. Compared to last year, this is a 12% increase in expenses. Now, this number, now compared to last year's budget, this is a 12% increase. This number includes increases due to inflation on a lot of our expenses, and also what we as a congregation have made a commitment to get our staff to help help us run our church and get them to salaries at midpoint recommendations. Here is the reality of where we are as we plan to pay for that budget. In the past 2 years, we have had 287 people given their pledges or given to our church in pledge form or just regular pledging and tithing. So far, for this year annual giving campaign, of the potential 287 people, we've had 60 people who've already filled out their pledge form for 2024. Now, some people don't fill out a form. They just tell us to roll it over from their previous pledge from year to year, which is great. I mean, we love that people can do that. But this year, we are asking people to engage in us. So if you're even rolling it over, your pledge, we'd like for you to tell us as early as possible to let us know so that we're not going to assume that you're rolling over, but that you tell us that you're going to roll it. Or if you're having conversations with your family on how you're going to pledge this year, let us know as soon as you can. That way we can plan for upcoming years so we know what to expect from this community. The good news is that of the 60 people who have submitted their forms, we've had over 80% increasing in what they gave last year. I know this is a very personal decision on how you want to give to this church, whether you give the same increase or decrease or whatever you give to the church is something we really appreciate. We'd like to hear from you before October 31st, when the annual giving campaign is over. This is our only ask this year. We're not going to ask for extra one-time donations like we have in the past. If you have made one-time donations in the past, I ask that you consider it again and let us know before October 31st. What we hear from you, the church, by October 31st is what we will use to understand what we will work with for the fiscal year 2024. This Sunday and the next 2 Sundays, we will have some events for you to engage us about the annual giving campaign. I am always available as a treasurer to talk to anyone about what type of questions or comments you have about this process. I'm in the Realm directory. My address and phone number are there. I am pretty much available here every Sunday morning, and I'm happy to spend some time to talk with you if you have any questions or comments. I'm happy to talk with you and listen to what you have to say over these next couple Sundays. So as we transition, here we are at the offering. Each week, we take up a collection to support the work of this church and our partners in the community. We do this because just as we all grow from our participation in this community, we all give back through our time, our talent, and our treasure. To give, you can text UC Lincoln and the amount you want to 73256. That's UC Lincoln and the amount to 73256. If the ushers can come forward, the offering will now be gratefully received as we get a wonderful piece from our guest musician Bill today.
feel the need to warn you that my comfort zone is closer to reading children's books than the Bible. But in order to be appropriate and to set you in the right mood for Charlie's sermon, here we go. It's the book of Matthew, chapter 25. When the Son of Man comes in his glory and all the angels with him, then he will sit on his glorious throne. Before him will be gathered all the nations, and he will separate the people one from another as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. He will place the sheep on his right, but the goats on the left. Then the king will say to those on his right, "Come, you who are blessed by my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungry, you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me drink. I was a stranger, and you welcomed me. I was naked, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you visited me. I was in prison, and you came to me." Then the righteous will answer him, saying, "Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you drink? When did we see you as a stranger and welcome you, or naked and clothe you? When did we see you sick or in prison and visit you?" And the king will answer them, "Truly I say to you, as you did to one of the least of these my brothers, you did to me." Then he will say to those on his left, "Depart from me, you cursed, into the eternal fire prepared for the devil and his angels. For I was hungry, and you gave me no food. I was thirsty, and you gave me no drink. I was a stranger, and you did not welcome me. Naked, and you did not clothe me. Sick and in prison, and you did not visit me." Then they also will answer, saying, "Lord, when did we see you hungry or thirsty, or a stranger, or naked, or sick or in prison, and did not minister to you?" And he will answer them, saying, "Truly I say to you, as you did not do it to the least of these, you did not do it for me. And these will go away into eternal punishment, but the righteous into eternal life." Whew, I think we need a hymn. Please stand as you are willing or able to join us in hymn number 131, "Love Will Guide Us."
So I see several new faces here this morning, and I just wanted to let you know, we don't always start sermons with readings from the Bible, but I'm trying to, this is an exercise, think of this as an exercise in the free and responsible search for truth and meaning, one of our principles. And it also addresses one of our sources, Jewish and Christian teachings, which call us to respond to God's love by loving our neighbors as ourselves. Now, I don't know if the title of my sermon this morning is When a Humanist Reads Scripture. And so I want to give you my humanist perspective. I've talked about it a few times before, but I just want to run through quickly some of the things that I believe while I'm reading the Bible. People created God. God did not create people. There is no heaven, there is no hell. I grew up in a Catholic family outside of Boston, Massachusetts. I don't know if my parents owned a Bible. I never saw them reading a Bible. So I'm not really familiar with the Bible, what I kind of think of as the Bible culture. And did I say Jesus is not God? But I think the Bible should be important to us because it's a major cultural artifact in the United States. And so I think we need to, you may have heard Bible passages and thought a little bit about them, but it's interesting to really dig into a Bible passage and see if there's meaning that a humanist can take from that. And so I don't know, I can't remember when it was, but at some point I stumbled across the parable of sheep and goats, which Amy read earlier. Now, I thought, that sounds cute. It's like Aesop's fables, a little sheep and goat story. And then I realized, as I read different Bibles, I read several Bibles, the same passages from several Bibles. And in some of them, it's not the parable of sheep and goats, it's the last judgment. It's the final judgment. And I thought, oh, that sounds ominous. And the other thing that kind of caught my attention is that when I read that and they talk about the least of these, I thought, why does it seem that so many people who are Christian or talk about themselves as Christian don't seem to follow this passage? Lord said, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you drink? And when did we see you a stranger and welcome you, or naked and clothe you? And when did we see you sick or in prison and visit you? And Jesus answers, truly I say to you, as you did to one of the least of these, my brothers, you did it to me. And, just reading that piece, that section, you almost want to say, what you did not do for the least of these, you did not do for me, Charlie. And I would hope that people, that's where I see this as a message of compassion. But when I, read the actual text, it seems almost like that compassion and mercy in the center of the passage is bracketed by, judgment and damnation. And somehow those don't seem quite like they fit. I don't know. Again, I'm not a regular Bible reader, so I'm kind of trying to figure my way around here. So it's the Bible, the culture around the Bible is confusing to me. I mean, there's a whole structure around it. So the three that I tried to figure out are sources, translations, and interpretations. Because it turns out, for example, that Matthew which Amy read from, is actually a combination of the Gospel of Mark, the Gospel of Luke, and the Q source. And the Q source, I think, I hope, doesn't have anything to do with the Q conspiracy that's popular today. But it's interesting. They apparently, Matthew kind of plagiarized a lot of the Gospel of Mark and Luke. And by reading those three Gospels, it looks like they're quoting another document. And no one really knows what that document is. No one can say, here's the Q document. But at the time they were writing, which was I think it was about, say, 60, 70 years after the death of Jesus, they were using material that they were getting from other sources and combining it, and that became their gospel. So the sources are kind of difficult to figure out and see how they fit together. And then translation, that's kind of interesting. I was trying to figure out how many Bible translations there are. I don't know that anybody can guess that number. I looked on Wikipedia, and they had a list of 100 complete translations of the Old and New Testament, but 30 of them had been published in the 21st century. So in the last less than 25 years, a third of them that were listed had been published, but it seemed that in the hundreds, thousands of years prior to that, there were probably a lot of translations going on out there. And sometimes the translation means a lot, sometimes it doesn't. Oscar loaned me or gave me a copy of the New Interpreter's Bible. So this is it's a Bible that's about 2.5 to 3 feet wide. It's 10 volumes, probably 500 pages per volume. And in this section here about Matthew, they've got two different translations of the Bible, and they're only a half a page long, and then there's 6 pages of explanations. And I kept thinking, but I should be able to read this and understand it and get something out of it without the 6 pages of explanations. I'll go into some of those in a little bit, but just to give you an idea, here's a difference between the NIV and the NRSV Bibles. He will sit on the throne of his glory. Or is it, he will sit on his throne in heavenly glory? I'm sure there's important differences there, but I'm not deep enough into this to understand what those differences are. And then what happens, so as I understand it, or as I imagine it, people read different versions of the Bible and have different interpretations of what the words are on that page. So for example, I'm doing that now. I'm interpreting the Bible, or I'm about to. And so there are a lot of people out there doing this. And it seems to me that the Bible provides a framework for lots of innovation, lots of changes, lots of arguments. And it's just kind of a piece out there that lots of people can comment on as it changes over time, as translations take place. One group that I've been interested in for a while is, has anybody here heard of the Jesus Seminar? Okay, there's a few. Good. So the Jesus Seminar was a group of people that were brought together, I think about 50 biblical scholars and then 100 lay people. And what they did was they spent 20 years going through the Bible, the New Testament, not the Old Testament, just the New Testament. Because what they were doing was saying, what does the Bible tell us, or what can we say about the historical Jesus? A real person who lived and in a culture and interacted with the people around him. So what they would do is they did their own translation of the New Testament, and then they would vote, did Jesus really say this? Maybe, probably not, definitely not. And so they were voting on, just the idea of that amazed me. Yeah. So they would have votes. They would vote on, okay, did Jesus really say this? And it turns out, what I thought was fun or interesting was they estimated that about 80% of the words attributed to Jesus in the New Testament, he never said. I'm not sure exactly how they figured that out, but it sounds interesting, Another thing that they mentioned was, they said Jesus had a human father who may have been called Joseph. Jesus was born in Nazareth, not Bethlehem. Jesus did not walk on water, feed a multitude with loaves and fishes, did not change water to wine, did not raise Lazarus from the dead, and Jesus did not rise from the dead either. This caught the attention of more conservative Christians. I liked one critic described the Jesus Seminar as the radical fringe, the far, far left wing. And they also mentioned that many of the participants in the Jesus Seminar were undistinguished, and some of them academics, some of them even taught at community colleges. So, the Jesus Seminar took a real different approach to the Bible and said, what can we really say that may be true based on the information, the historical information that we have? What can we say about Jesus? And in the New Interpreter's Bible that Oscar gave me a copy of the material, they brought up 4 themes that they thought should be considered as you analyze this passage in the Bible. And I found these interesting because I wasn't familiar with many or any of this. So I've just read it and said, maybe not, nope. So for example, there's one theme, the 2 kingdoms. And I'll read from the New Interpreter's Bible the discussion that they wrote. There are only 2 kingdoms. The Son of Man with his angels, the blessed righteous, and the kingdom of God prepared from eternity stand on one side. The devil, his angels, the accursed, and the destiny prepared for the devil and his own stand on the other. The kingdom of God is disclosed as the only true kingdom. In this final scene, kingdom language is not used of Satan's realm. So, to me, this hard dichotomy doesn't really make sense to me. I think humans are a lot more confused and confusing and complex than that. It's sort of you're on our team or their team, and nothing, there's no leeway here. So I guess from my perspective as a humanist, that doesn't make sense to me. The idea that it's that hard a break, the separation of people like that. I don't know, I just thought, no, that's interesting, but I don't believe that. I don't buy it. Now, the next one they can't have is the Christological basis. Anybody know what Christological means? It's the study of Christ, and particularly the study of Christ as, or Jesus, I should say, the study of Jesus as a Messiah. And so is Jesus the Messiah? And that's a big part of the discussion of Christology, as I understand it, which may be wrong. But I again have a passage here that I wanted to read about the Christology. For Matthew, this Christology, and not a general humanitarianism, validates the ethic of love and mercy that becomes the criterion of judgment. This text cannot be used legitimately for biblical support for a general humanitarian ethic without coming to terms with the Christology and apocalypticism in which it is inextricably embedded. And that's why I was thinking about the bracketing of the, it's Judgment Day and you're damned. That was the apocalyptic story here. In fact, I can't remember who it was that I read it, but I thought this was a parable. That's what some people call it, a parable. And this person said, no, actually, what it is an apocalyptic drama. I thought that way. Yes, I suspect a lot of people reading that for the first time would see it as a drama. Next was what they called the primacy of ethics. And I didn't realize this. This is the only scene with any details picturing the last judgment in the New Testament. So this is where the last judgment is described, the only place in the New Testament that it's described. To the reader's surprise, the criterion of judgment is not confession of faith in Christ. Nothing is said of grace, justification, or the forgiveness of sins. What counts is whether one has acted with loving care for needy people. Such deeds are not a matter of extra credit, but constitute the decisive criterion of judgment. And, we sometimes use the phrase deeds, not creeds, and this is addressing that really directly. So I think some people would say, first you accept Christ your Savior, and then we can talk about whether you're a good person or not. We need to get the first done before we waste our time talking about the other. So if you are not accepting Jesus as the Son of God, I'm sorry, I'm going to digress. There's a big argument about articles here that it was really strange. So if you say the Son of God, you mean one thing. If you say a Son of God, you mean something else. Because the Son of God is Jesus. A Son of God could be anybody. And it's interesting that some translations, when a pronoun changes from plural to singular, it's, this is a big thing, because what they said at some point in here, they talked about the brothers or the brethren. And apparently a lot of theologians describe sorry, I'm having a The fourth point. So compassionate action, not faith. Then the fourth is the ultimacy of love command. I like that. The ultimacy of love command. The fundamental, and describing it, the fundamental thrust of this scene is that when people respond to human need or fail to respond, they are in fact responding or failing to respond to Christ. And they go on to say that some folks were surprised to learn at the judgment that there was a deeper dimension to their acts of human compassion. Thus, the needy brother and sister, some people were arguing that when Jesus talked about his brethren who you should have treated my brothers like this. Some people would argue that those who are saved are only Christians, or even more specific, Christian missionaries. So if you do not do this for Christian missionaries, you do not do it for me, which I think changes Sandra's, no. We'll talk about that. But that's what I think some people talk about. So what did I get out of this exercise, this experiment? How should humanists read the Bible? I think humanists should read lots of different sacred texts. If in your childhood or your family you have Christians, you may be more familiar with some of the stories in the New Testament, and it may be worthwhile to go back and read that and see if it really says what you thought it may have said. And also to look out around you and look for other sources, because again, there are lots of interpretations about the same words. And so I would encourage you, if you decide to, read a passage in the Bible and research it, I think you'll find a lot of material and you'll get to make up your own mind. And so as a humanist, I find this passage to be about compassion rather than judgment. And so I think you can read the Bible and take pieces out of it. Now, some people, I think, will say, oh, no. You have to, once you start reading the Bible, you have to accept it all. You have to accept everything. And then it turns out that, well, my everything is different from their everything. And there's disagreements and interpretations about what that really means. But I would encourage you to read the Bible just to see what other folks are exposed to, and do some research. Read into some of the other alternative interpretations of the Bible. And I think the other thing I took away from this is that deeds do matter. It's not just faith. You need to be helping the needy. I mean, that's kind of a basic human responsibility, and one of the things that I was trying to figure out was, why do so many people read the same words and come up with such a different conclusion? So, the other thing, a couple things. I think, first of all, the least of these is all of humanity. We need to be responsible towards each other and to help each other, and particularly to help the needy. And also, it's, the Bible is a complex thing. And so it was just a, intellectually interesting exercise to read all the footnotes and cross-references and all of that. So I think it would be good to spend some time maybe going back and reading the Bible. Or, in my case, reading it for the first time. So good luck. You probably will be confused if you're not, familiar with the territory. It can be confusing. Thank you.
Our last hymn. I invite you to stand as you are willing or able to sing hymn number 170, We Are Gentle, Angry People. Hymn number 170.
So, this is a reading I use every time I end a service. If here you have found freedom, take it with you into the world. If you have found comfort, go and share it with others. If you have dreamed dreams, help one another that they may come true. If you have known love, give some back to a bruised and hurting world. Go in peace.